Hello, dear design students. This video is going to be about color. I'm just going to give you a very quick introductory to color. There is a whole another class on color theory if you're interested in taking that. But just as a basic of surface design, of 2D design, here's a little introduction to how to use color in your designs. So I'm going to be just talking about a couple of base things when it comes to color. We're going to go over some basics where you will learn some new terminology on color and color mixing. And then we're going to go over some color schemes and how that can change the mood of your composition. So here are some basic vocabulary words that can help you get acquainted with color. So in the middle here, I have a color wheel, and the traditional color wheel is made up of 12 colors. So if you remember, you have, like the colors of the rainbow, and those are kind of the main colors in this color wheel. Plus, if you mix two colors together, it creates like a third color, right? So if we look here on the right, we have primary colors. So that's red, yellow, and blue. So let me just get my little marker. So here we have yellow, we have red, and then we have blue, which are the primary colors. Then you have the secondary colors where you have orange, green, and violet. You have the tertiary colors where you mix in things like red and orange, and you come up with red-orange. When you mix blue and violet, and you come up with blue-violet. And when you mix blue-green, you come up with blue-green, right? So those are your tertiary colors. So those are all listed over here. 3 primary, 3 secondary, and 6 tertiary colors to the color wheel. And what that does is it just makes you kind of aware of like what colors you can mix to create, something. And there's lots of videos on YouTube, and there's a lot of color websites that you can go to in order to learn how to mix colors at an advanced level, okay? On the other hand, you can take one color, which we're going to call hue. So hue is just a basic color. You can turn that into a tint. That means you're adding white to it, and that's like a different value of the same color. So you're taking one color, you add white to it, and it becomes a tint. So those are light colors. If you add black to it, they're going to become shades. So when you say it's a shade of red, it means it's a darker version of red. And then if you add gray to it, it becomes tones. So if you're saying like it's a tone of blue, it would be like a blue grayish color, okay? And within those tints, shades, and tones, there are millions of ranges that you can come up with. Some can be extremely towards the white, or extremely towards the actual hue, or extremely gray, or extremely dark, right? So it's really like a gradation, and you get to decide how much color mixing you're doing to create different versions of that same color. Okay, so these are kind of like the basic vocabulary words. Now, what would be more interesting to you is how can you use color to create certain effects when it comes to your design? Okay, and that's where basic color schemes come in. So here's a better version of that color wheel. It's all labeled for you, and a color wheel is usually very, very handy when you're mixing colors or you're creating some basic color wheels. So if you're really, really interested in color theory, I would suggest getting a color wheel, and don't just download one or get one from a book because of the print quality. We don't know how it's going to print. Order one from an art store, like a, like a official color wheel, which will have the correct pigments. So when you print it, I mean, when you get it, the red actually looks red and the blue actually looks blue, so on and so forth, right? It can really change according to like the printer you have, even the lighting that you have. So color color is really subjective, but let's put all that to the side and stick to like some really basic things. Okay? Monochromatic color schemes is a scheme where you take one color, right? So in this case, they've taken blue green and they've created different versions of the same hue. So they have dark versions and light versions. You can also have gray versions of that same color. And if you're just using one color plus gray, black, and white into your design, that would be considered monochromatic, right? Then you have analogous colors. And analogous colors are colors that are on the same side of the color wheel. Okay, so if you again look at this color wheel, let's say you're using red, yellow, and orange together. They just happen to be all warm colors, but they're also analogous colors because they're really similar to each other, right? They're not the exact same color, but they're like share something with each other, right? They're sharing that reddish, yellowish kind of color together. They're sharing those colors together. They're on the same side. Another would be blue, green, green, and yellow, green, using those together. So in this little palette, you have, you can throw in white and black into really any kind of color or different version of like red or black, just to kind of add a little bit of contrast. But if you look at this, you have yellow, green and blue and a dark blue. Those are all sort of on one side of the color wheel. Complementary colors are different because they're on the opposite side of the color wheel. For example, you have some blues and then you have some oranges. Brown, this particular brown is like a darker version of orange. So if you look at the color wheel, blue and orange are exactly opposite of each other. And that can create a really nice color wheel that has a lot of contrast to it. Okay. Analogous color scheme has a lot of similarity to it. So it tends to be a little bit more kind of like calming. It looks more unified. Complementary creates a lot of contrast and it can really pop. Okay. And then you have near complementary, which is just like complementary, but not exactly. It's like a little here and there. So in this case, you have red, orange, orange. And then on the opposite of that is blues and greens, right? So we have blues and greens mixed with oranges and reds. And they're like kind of almost on the opposite side of the color wheel, but they kind of like work together. Another word for this would also be split complementary. You might hear like a lot of different words for this. Okay, so here are some other real life examples. You have this monochromatic textile where you have like dark and light versions of this kind of like orangey red color, right? And they're just different variations, some really, really dark versions, some really, really light versions, and medium versions, but it's the same color, right? Then you have analogous color, this painting. It looks very serene because all the colors are kind of like unified. You have like greens, you have yellow greens, you have a little bit of like yellow orange, so that kind of like color scheme kind of coming together. And then you have complementary where you have blue and orange and they're pretty much on the opposite side of the spectrum, creating a lot of contrast and creating this poster that really pops out. Here are some other color schemes. Just to let you know, the color schemes, they're not limited to just like these 3 or 4 color schemes. There are so many color schemes that you can create just by kind of observing, you know, colors around you, and how they interact with each other. So this again is an example of split complementary. You can also call it near complementary, where you have green, like this kind of like a really dark olive green mountain, and on the opposite side of it, very close to it, so the opposite would be red, but they've used pink and orange, which are near red, right? So pink and orange together, they're, you know, competing with the olive green and creating this really nice color scheme, right? And they're not like the brightest colors, but it's a really nice effect. So try to like mix in, like don't just go for like super bright colors all the time, like the super like hue. Try to use different shades and tones and tints when you're thinking about what colors to use. Okay. Then you have muted colors, which is a version of tones. So this is where you add a little bit of gray to your colors. So when you're looking at this poster right here, this is like using a grayer, darker red. You have like this grayer, darker blue. You have this lighter but also grayer green right here. So they're not like red, green, and blue like the, you know, the most like saturated, brightest red, green, and blue, but they have like kind of like muted or toned down versions of those. The artist did use a super bright red in the middle where the hand is to create that huge contrast so that our eye goes towards that hand. So color is also really great when you're trying to create focal points or emphasis. And then you have chromatic grays, which is very similar to muted colors. So, you know, like all of these are like different stages of like colors basically. So chromatic grays are like almost grays, but they have a little bit of color in them. So we have a blue gray, we have a like a sandy gray, we have like a brownie gray, and they're all working together to create this really nice composition. There is contrast there because there's like a different version of orange and a different version of blue, which are technically complementary colors, but the artists have added so much gray to them that it looks very there's that similarity there in the colors. There is a unity and a kind of like calm demeanor to like the color scheme. Okay, so use your colors thoughtfully. If you want to go above and beyond, I also have other videos that I use for my color theory class that you can watch. You can also look into symbolism when it comes to color. It really depends on the culture. So sometimes, for example, you're using the color red, it can mean love, it can mean danger. If you're using the word, you know, color yellow, it's a little bit more cautionary, things like that. Tied a little bit to whatever specific culture that you're interested in looking into or incorporating into your designs. Okay, so there's much more that you can do from here. But this is kind of the introduction to color that you need to know for now.